A new field that deserves some attention has to be the field of emergence. There are different areas where we could go into explaining what makes people curious about how things are manifesting themselves. So we will begin with consciousness, technology, and politics. Within the field of consciousness, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of neuroscientists and evolutionary neurologists whose sole focus in life is to unlock the secrets of how our perception of the world operates and what mechanisms may be at play for us to utilize as a tool for survival. From quarks to atoms to cells to organisms, we may have begun to walk the correct direction of how consciousness works, but our minuscule understanding of how systems such as fungi and other plant species are able to communicate and work synergistically may be distant for us. Some people even argue that consciousness is present in all forms of life. To an extent, we have just yet to understand what forms of consciousness may exist. Some philosophers have argued that due to how our limited human sensory organs work, we may lack the imaginative ability to use the humanistic subjective scientific method as a way to deem other forms of consciousness as an empirically data-based reality. It is true to wonder how humans are able to function as a collective unit for survival within a seemingly perfect environment, and our capacity and capability to further this understanding may be our key to survival. Some pseudoscientists claim that to work within the confines of empirical data is too limiting as a metric, and one has to entertain the idea of entering a domain of metaphysical realities that we have yet to explore. The best way to understand emergent consciousness theory may be to imagine it as a multi-leveled and multi-dimensional expanding sphere that is malleable and flexible depending on the open-mindedness of the individual. There are some levels we can explain using measurable metrics, and others that may be invisible due to our finite understanding of the subject as a whole. As time moves forward, maybe we'll be able to grasp what fabric we are working with as a tool to further our universal intelligence. Within the area of emergent technology, most people are familiar with the fact that what all technology is essentially meant to do is send, store, and receive data more efficiently than the series of commutative technologies of the previous generations. As organisms, we have created many unique ways of sending, receiving, and storing information, from neurons that work with axons and dendrites to the most sophisticated forms of communication in the animal kingdom, human language. Some would argue that the technologies we have created pale into comparison to how language and communication systems work in nature, as mentioned above. Civilization has had an amazing run from grunt noises to smoke signals to telegraphs to radio to television to Wi-Fi to the modern-day phone. When most people think of emergent technologies, more people's first notion is that one has to be talking about media devices and tools that give us the ability to essentially enter someone's mind, to see the world as they see it, with all the beauty and disgust associated with being. Social media and the internet as a whole have done an amazing job with this idea, but what I find more interesting is what is coming next. Many futurists have conceded with the notion that the base forms of how we communicate can be made more efficient by the use of technology, and we haven't even broken the surface of how information in the future will be sent, received, and stored. For example, most investors see the space of augmented reality and virtual reality as the next stepping stone in human engagement, as well as people that are noticing the effectiveness and efficiency of voice technology and automated suggestion systems that remove the impediments of our current bandwidth issue using these technologies. Near telepathic seems to be the ultimate goal, as well as the decentralization of all information and the loss of the idea of privacy. The field of biometrics holds great promise as long as we can take the correct approach when creating oversight, when dealing with the problems that will inevitably come to pass lest we fall into the same problems that we coined in "Can't Have Your Cake and Eat It Too" article. That leads us into the next area of emergence, politics. The current struggle going on may have less to do with the current left-right argument and more to do with how to survive the coming bottleneck within the technological revolution that is coming. Now that all people, if not mentally, physically impaired, or lack the environmental resources, have the capability of being able to self-educate as well as voice their opinion, there seems to be a growing disparity among those that have a different opinion that the social media conglomerate platforms that are being used. What happens when there's only one microphone company and you've been banned from owning a microphone? The fight I see coming in the future has more to do with the indoctrination of future generations' motivations and controlling thought patterns and fringe ideas than anything else. The fringe ideas are most important in my opinion because they are the markers to tell how healthy or unhealthy a system of free speech, free opinion, and free thought is. If they have no voice, do we? Most media companies want to encourage free speech and uplift those that are oppressed and subjugated as long as it doesn't interfere with the microphone company's plans or goals. It is, in my opinion, that this may be the first step into what is known from our high school readings, thought crimes. Now to play advocate. I do believe that these structures have good intentions, but with the upcoming technologies, we may need to pay closer attention to how well we are shepherding the garden of humanity.